Hello, it's us, the Ministry of the Real Truth, and welcome to our latest video presentation. Today we are asking perhaps the over-asked question: did the great deluge or flood of the Bible, or Genesis, happen historically, or historically happen, or was it total mythical? What is the estimated year or date, time period, and if possible the month, day, as well as the year, if it's available? Was it a total global event as proclaimed, or just a regional event that happened in the Mesopotamian region alone? As we have the book The Timetables of History by Bernard Gruen, revised by Bernard Gruen from Werner Stein's Culture Fahrplan. It's a chronological timetable, very reliable, on events that happened globally throughout the world, throughout history, from 5,000 years ago. Apparently that's as far as you can really go, okay, because there's no records before that of what went down. So we're going to have a look at the Epic of Gilgamesh first, because that's the classic and that's well known. The Epic of Gilgamesh is an epic poem from ancient Mesopotamia, and they're like descendants supposedly of the Akkadians, Babylonians, perhaps the Sumerians and the Assyrians. Mesopotamia is a historical region of Western Asia situated within Tigris-Euphrates river system in the northern part of the Fertile Crescent today. Mesopotamia occupied modern Iraq. In the broader sense, the historical region included present-day Iraq and Kuwait. If you have read Genesis extensively, that is the land of Havilah. Yeah, we've covered that briefly in a older video that we did on the Book of Breetah in the Aramaic, or Genesis in English. Okay, so the Epic of Gilgamesh is an epic poem from ancient Mesopotamia, regarded as the earliest surviving notable literature and second oldest religious text after the pyramid text. What's his name? Is it Wallace Budge stated that it's the oldest religious text in the world, these pyramid texts, right? And he translated them. The pyramid texts are the oldest ancient Egyptian funerary texts, dating to the late Old Kingdom. They are the earliest known corpus of ancient Egyptian religious texts, or body. That's Latin for body. Written in Old Egyptian, the pyramid texts were carved onto the subterranean walls, etc. The literary history of Gilgamesh begins with 5 Sumerian poems about, it says here, Gilgamesh. Sumerian for Gilgamesh, there you go. King of Uruk, also known as Waka or Waka, was an ancient city of Sumer situated east of the present bed of the Euphrates River on the dried up ancient channel of the Euphrates. And it gives you information on that. East of modern Samoa, Al-Mathana. Dating from the 3rd dynasty of Ur of Chaldee. The 3rd dynasty of Ur, also called the Neo Sumerian Empire, that means the new, it's a modern Sumerian Empire, refers to a 22nd to 21st century BC Sumerian ruling dynasty based in the city of Ur and short-lived territorial political state, which some historians consider to have been a nascent empire. Go define the word nascent if you have problems understanding what that means. Around 2100 BC, these independent stories were later used as source material for a combined epic in Akkadian, an East Semitic language now extinct that was spoken in ancient Mesopotamia from the 3rd millennium BC until its gradual replacement by Akkadian-influenced Old Aramaic among Mesopotamians by the 8th century. If someone wrote something online and said Akkadian never existed, well, there's the proof that it actually did, right? But it died out. The first surviving version of this combined epic, known as the Old Babylonian version, dates back to the 18th century BC and is titled after its incipit. What does that mean? The incipit of a text is the first few words of the text employed as an identical label. In a musical composition, an incipit is an initial sequence of notes having the same purpose. The word incipit means, or comes from Latin, it means it begins, and so forth. Okay. The incipit Shutur Eli Shari, surpassing all other kings. Only a few tablets of it have survived. The later standard Babylonian version, compiled by Sin Liki Unini, was a Masu who lived in Mesopotamia, probably in the period between 1300 BC and 1000 BC. He is traditionally thought to have compiled the best preserved version of the Epic of Gilgamesh. We're assuming that's what it's saying. And it dates from the 13th to the 10th centuries BC and bears the incipit Shah Nakba Imuru. He who saw the abyss, the deep pit, the darkness, right? Pit of darkness. In metaphorical terms, he who sees the unknown. Okay. He looks into the unknown or sees the unknown. Approximately 2/3 of this longer 12 tablet version have been recovered. Some of the best copies were discovered in the library ruins. The Royal Library of Ashurbanipal, named after Ashurbanipal, the last great king of the Assyrian Empire, is a collection of more than 30,000 clay tablets, some say 50,000, that Henry Layard got hold of and shipped to the British Museum. Right. And they're all there, but they're all like in fragments, all that sort of stuff. Tablets and fragments containing texts of all kinds from the 7th century BC, including texts in various languages. Okay, because he was a tablet worm, or aka bookworm. So he sent emissaries out to go collect all these classics. If he couldn't bring the originals, they had to make copies of them and bring them, and they put them into this massive library, which was later on they were invaded, and it was destroyed. And Henry Layard in the 1900s and his friend dug it up, and apparently a historian, George Smith, helped them to translate it. Okay, approximately 2/3 of this longer 12 tablet version have been recovered. Some of the best copies were discovered in the library ruins of the 7th century BC Assyrian king Ashurbanipal. Okay, he was like, a lot of the kings were like tough, or strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak. They got attacked a lot, and then he finally subdued all those that were attacking Assyria, like the Hittites, these small tribes, probably the Israelites, something like that, House of Israel, others, kept them at bay. But then when he died, his guard, etc., his troops couldn't really handle all these nations, like they all coming at them, all directions, and then it just basically fell apart for a while there. They tried, but they were overrun. Here's the first hard ass king that made him stronger, made him battle everybody, kept all those invaders at bay until his death. The first half of the story discusses Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, and Enkidu, a wild man created by the gods to stop Gilgamesh from oppressing the people of Uruk. After Enkidu becomes civilized through sexual initiation with a prostitute. Well, in the story she's a handmaiden or something, a servant. She lies on the grass and does a little ditty, gets him going, and then she seduces him, and then the animals run away. They don't want to know him anymore because he probably lost the animal scent or whatever, right? And he's saddened, but he goes off with this woman, and he challenges Gilgamesh to a test of strength. Gilgamesh wins the contest. Nonetheless, the two become friends. Together they make a 6-day journey to the legendary cedar forest. The glorious realm of the gods of Mesopotamian mythology. It is guarded by the demigod Humbaba, and was once entered by the hero Gilgamesh, who dared cut down trees from its virgin stands during his quest for fame. Okay, well, in the story he's a bit of a wimp, and Enkidu seems to be determined to get rid of this Humbaba, right? And he cuts its head off. Where they plan to slay the guardian Humbaba, the terrible. There he is there. In ancient Mesopotamian religion, Humbaba, also spelled Huwawa, and surnamed the Terrible, was a monstrous giant of immemorial age, raised by Utu, the sun. We've got that word in our language. Utu, it means strength or like revenge or payback or something. The sun, justice, truth, God. Humbaba was the guardian of the cedar forest where the gods lived, etc. Okay. They planned to slay the guardian Humbaba the Terrible and cut down the sacred cedar. The goddess Ishtar, Inanna, is an ancient Mesopotamian goddess associated with love, beauty, sex, war, justice, and political power. She was originally worshipped in Sumer under the name Inanna, and later by the Akkadian, Babylonians, and Assyrians, probably under the name Ishtar. Right, and that's where we get the word Esther, Easter, probably Ashtaroth, etc., Astarte, from that. Sends the bull of heaven. In ancient Mesopotamian mythology, Gugalana, the bull of heaven, is a mythical beast fought by the hero Gilgamesh. The story of the bull of heaven has two different versions, one recorded in an earlier Sumerian poem and probably a later version of some kind. To punish Gilgamesh for spurning her advances. Yeah, she probably tried to seduce him. He says, no, not interested. So she got all snotty. He decided to pay him back for that rejection, right? Gilgamesh and Enkidu kill the bull of heaven, after which the gods decide to sentence Enkidu to death and kill him. Yeah, one of them had to die for killing their beloved Humbaba, etc. Yeah, depends on what version you read, I suppose, because it's saying here the bull of heaven. One of them had to get punished for its death. Okay, so they decide to sentence Enkidu to death and kill him. In the second half of the epic, distress over Enkidu's death causes Gilgamesh to undertake a long and perilous journey to discover the secret of eternal life. He eventually learns that life which you look for, you will never find. For when the gods created man, they let death be his share, and life withheld in their own hands. Nevertheless, because of his great building projects, his account of Sidiru's advice, or more accurately Shiduru is a character in the Epic of Gilgamesh. She is described as an Aor wife, the oldest preserved version of the composition to contain the episodes involving her leaves her nameless in the later standard edition compiled, etc., etc. And what the immortal man Utnapishtim or Utna-Ishtim Atrahasis Zeusudra Sumerian Shisuthros, how we say that, is a character in ancient Mesopotamian mythology. He is tasked by the god Enki to create a giant ship to be called preserver of life in preparation of a giant flood, apparently. Okay. Okay, so this god Enki loved those creations. Okay, wanted them to preserve, live on, so gave the certain boat builder the instructions. And Irving, the plans how to make it. Irving Finkel details that in Noah's Ark, the Great Adventure or something, this video, and he followed the instructions and he recreated it according to those Babylonian cuneiform texts, and it came out round, not a watermelon shape or sushi roll shape, with the pretty giraffes and elephants poking their head up, right? Which is known as a coracle, supposedly still used in Wales today or some other countries like that. It was actually round. Yeah, and he floated it or took it for a ride or whatever, test drive down the certain river, him and his team. It's quite a huge thing, right? It's got bitumen, tar and all this other stuff according to the plans on this Babylonian cuneiform text. Okay. And what the immortal man Utnapishtim or Atrahasis told him about the great flood. The Gilgamesh flood myth is a flood myth in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Many scholars believe that the flood myth was added to Tablet 11 in the standard version of the Gilgamesh epic by an editor who used the flood story from the Epic of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh's fame survived well after his death, with expanding interest in the Gilgamesh story, which has been translated into many languages and is featured in works of popular fiction. The epic is regarded as a foundational work in religion and the tradition of heroic sagas, with Gilgamesh forming the prototype for later heroes like Hercules, these are the Greeks, right? Greek god men, heroes, all that sort of stuff. And the epic itself serving as an influence for the Old Testament and Homeric epics, probably the Odyssey and the Iliad, probably. Okay, so it was an influence for the Old Testament. Okay, it was added in the Old Testament, very influential. And these are contents. All the tables 1 to 12, Old Babylonian versions, Pennsylvania tablet, Yale, etc., etc. Sumerian poems and translations, relationship to the Bible, Garden of Eden, advice from Ecclesiastes, Noah's flood, influence on Homer, etc., etc. Here's the history of it. Distinct sources exist from over a 2,000 year time frame. The earliest Sumerian poems are now generally considered to be distinct stories rather than parts of a single epic. They date from as early as the 3rd dynasty of Uruk, around 2100 BC. The Old Babylonian Tablets, around about 1800 BC, are the earliest surviving tablets for a single Epic of Gilgamesh narrative. The Old Babylonian Tablets and later Akkadian version are important sources for modern translations, with the earlier texts mainly used to fill in gaps. Lacunae, what is that? A gap in a manuscript, inscription, text, painting, or musical work. A manuscript, text, or section suffering from gaps is said to be lacunos or lacunulos in later text. Although several revised versions based on new discoveries have been published, the version consists of 12 tablets and was edited by this person here, who is thought to have lived sometime between 1300 BC and 1000 BC. Some 15,000 fragments, the number keeps changing all the time, of Assyrian cuneiform tablets. There it is there. Logosyllabic script that was used to write several languages of the ancient Near East. Its active use from the early Bronze Age until the beginning of the Common Era. It is named for the characteristic wedge-shaped impressions which form its writings, I suppose. So fragments of Assyrian cuneiform tablets were discovered in the library of Ashurbanipal in Nineveh by Austin Henry Layard. There he is there. An English traveller, archaeologist, cuneiformist, art historian. They had a lot of titles, right? His assistant Hormuzd Rassam, I think this guy was a Muslim. Okay, he's a Syriologist and author. Okay. And W.K. Loftus in the early 1850s. He discovered the ancient Sumerian city of Uruk in 1849. Later in the following decade, the British Museum hired George Smith, who is he, a Syriologist, one of the oldest known written works of the literature, Epic of Gilgamesh, to study these. In 1872, Smith read translated fragments before the Society of Biblical Archaeology. In 1875 and 1876 he published fuller translations, the latter of which was published as the Chaldean account of Genesis. We've done a video on that. The central character of Gilgamesh was initially reintroduced to the world as Izdubar before the cuneiform logographs, and his name could be pronounced accurately. And more information here. Different versions. Standard Babylonian, tablet 1 to 12. Old Babylonian versions. These other versions here. Nippur School Tablet. Sumerian poems. Translations. The first direct Arabic translation from the original tablets was published in the 1960s by Iraqi archaeologist Taha Bakir. And plenty more there. The definitive modern translation is a 2-volume critical work by Andrew George, and so forth. Stephen Mitchell supplied a controversial version that takes many liberties with the text. It includes modernized allusions and commentary relating to the Iraq War of 2003. Later influence, relationship to the Bible, various themes, plot elements and characters in the Hebrew Bible correlate. Okay. They match, right? They near match with the Epic of Gilgamesh because we've looked at it and there's some dates, information data changed, right? Probably to make it more palatable or palatable, yeah, in English, in the Hebrew and then in the English. Correlate with the Epic of Gilgamesh, notably the accounts of the Garden of Eden, the advice from Ecclesiastes, Garden of Eden. In the Abrahamic religions, Garden of Eden or Garden of God was also called the terrestrial paradise, which is the biblical paradise described in Genesis 2-3 and Ezekiel 28 and 31. The advice from Ecclesiastes, written around 450 to 200 BCE, one of the Ketuvim, writings of the Hebrew Bible, and one of the wisdom books of the Christian Old Testament. The title, commonly used in English as a language, Latin transliteration of the Greek, so that's probably Latinized Greek, form of Latinized Greek, in the Genesis flood narrative. The Genesis flood narrative is the Hebrew version of the universal flood myth. Universal, what's that, globally? It's global. It tells of God's, well, it didn't happen in the universe, did it? But yeah, that's what it means. It's like Catholicism. Catholic. The word defined as universal, meaning worldly or globally. It tells of God's decision to return the universe to its pre-creation state of watery chaos. Okay, so here it's saying it's the universe. Why would he want to flood the universe with water? So basically what it's saying is the planet back to a pre-creation state of watery chaos and remake it through the microcosm of Noah's Ark. Yeah, replenishing the earth. Because something went on and who destroyed all the beings, all the animals, etc. and started over again because he regretted making them. Garden of Eden. The parallels between the stories of Enkidu, Shamat and Adam and Eve have been long recognised by scholars. In both, a man is created from the soil by God and lives in a natural setting amongst the animals. He is introduced to a woman who tempts him. In both stories, the man accepts food from the woman, covers his nakedness and must leave his former realm, unable to return. And he's also in the original ancient Aramaic and Hebrew, the story of Lilith. In the modern Americanized Bible versions, it's not really detailed or left out completely. Okay, so he covers his nakedness after eating food from the woman and must leave his former realm, unable to return. The presence of a snake that steals a plant of immortality from the hero later in the epic is another point of similarity. However, a major difference between the two stories, see there's a major difference as we're stating, is that while Enkidu experiences regret regarding his seduction away from nature, this is only temporary. After being confronted by the god Shamash for being ungrateful, Enkidu recants and decides to give the woman who seduced him his final blessings before he dies. This is in contrast to Adam, whose fall from grace is largely portrayed purely as a punishment for disobeying God. For being ungrateful, Enkidu, okay, we'll read that bit. Yeah, okay. Advice from Ecclesiastes. Several scholars suggest direct borrowing of Siduri's advice by the author of Ecclesiastes. Who was this guy? Right, it's a character. She's described as an Epic of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh as an alewife, the oldest preserved version of blah blah blah. I wonder if that's to do with beer. Advice by the authors of Ecclesiastes. A rare proverb about the strength of a triple-stranded rope. A triple-stranded rope is not easily broken, is common to both books. Noah's flood. Andrew George, whoever this guy is, British academic best known for his edition and translation of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Andrew George is a professor of Babylonian departure of the language and culture of Near and Middle East at the School of Oriental, whatever that was, right? There's some people that they go, ooh, that. And they go on about Stephanie O'Malley saying this and that. The negatives about them. Andrew George submits that the Genesis flood narrative matches that in Gilgamesh so closely that few doubt that it derives from a Mesopotamian account. It derives from a Mesopotamian account, not a Hebrew account. What is particularly noticeable is the way the Genesis flood. Okay, this would be probably the original Breetah. Okay, in the Aramaic. In the Hebrew, you have the Bereshit. What is particularly noticeable is the way the Genesis flood story follows the Gilgamesh flood tale, point by point and in the same order. Yeah, we've found variations. It's not exactly the same, even when the story permits other alternatives, right? In a 2001 Torah commentary related on behalf of the conservative movement of Judaism, rabbinic scholar Robert Wexler stated, the most likely assumption we can make is that both Genesis and Gilgamesh drew their material from a common tradition about the flood that existed in Mesopotamia. Okay. Genesis and Gilgamesh drew their material from a common tradition about the flood that existed in Mesopotamia. These stories then diverged in the retelling. The Usudra, Pishtim and Noah are the respective heroes of the Sumerian, Akkadian and biblical flood legends of the ancient Near East. Okay, apparently in Palestine it's like Na, like N apostrophe AH, and they say it's pretty similar to Noah, and it's what it was. It was Noah in that language. What became Noah from that particular word. Additional biblical parallels. Matthias Henze suggests that Nebuchadnezzar's madness in the biblical Book of Daniel draws on the Epic of Gilgamesh. He claims that the author uses elements from the description of Enkidu to paint a sarcastic and mocking portrait of the king of Babylon. Many characters in the epic have mythical biblical parallels, most notably Ninti, the Sumerian goddess of life. 8 goddesses of healing who was created by Nin Hursag to heal Enki's body. Her specific healing area was the rib. Enki had eaten forbidden plants and was then cursed by Nin Hursag, who was later and so forth. She was the Sumerian goddess of life, was created from Enki's rib to heal him after he had eaten forbidden flowers. It is suggested that the story served as the basis. It served as the basis for the story of Eve, created from Adam's rib in the Book of Genesis. Esther J. Hamori in Echoes of Gilgamesh in the Jacob story also claims that the myth of Jacob and Esau, remember they were in the womb and one was a hell grabber, and Jacob was all was it Jacob? Esau was all hairy. He's red and he's all hairy. It's paralleled with a wrestling match between Gilgamesh and Enkidu, the wild man versus the king of Uruk, right? Of which Gilgamesh defeated him. Book of Giants. Gilgamesh is mentioned in one version of the Book of Giants, an apocryphal Jewish book which expands upon the Genesis narrative of the Hebrew Bible in a similar manner to the Book of Enoch. Together with this latter work, the Book of Giants stands as an attempt to explain how it was that in etc. how it all began, sort of thing. Read up more on that yourself, which is related to the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch is an ancient Hebrew apocalyptic religious text ascribed by tradition to Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah. Enoch contains unique material on the origins of demons and Nephilim, why some angels fell from heaven, etc. This is very different to the ancient, original, very old Assyrian Aramaic or Aramaic, Leshana Ateeqa, SupraYAH, of the Ktav Ashurit, which is the older sister of the Ktav Iviri or Avri, the original ancient, very old Hebrew. It just says that Enoch is basically righteous in Genesis, and that's it. It doesn't say that he was righteous. For that, he was taken by God. He didn't die up on a fiery chariot into the clouds, and he lived on forever. There's supposed to be some sort of scripture, probably pointing at that in 1 Peter or something like that. Yeah. Okay, so the Book of Giants version found at Qumran mentions the Sumerian hero Gilgamesh and the monster Humbaba with the Watchers and Giants. Okay, maybe that's Gnostic, maybe. Okay, or maybe it's pseudepigrapha. Maybe. Influence on Homer. Numerous scholars have drawn attention to various themes, episodes and verses indicating that the Epic of Gilgamesh had a substantial influence on both the epic poems ascribed to Homer. The list of epic poems is obviously in Greek there. Ascribed to Homer. No, it's not. Part 2. Numerous scholars have drawn attention to various themes, episodes and verses indicating that the Epic of Gilgamesh had a substantial influence on both of the epic poems ascribed to Homer. Numerous scholars have drawn attention to various themes, episodes and verses indicating that the Epic of Gilgamesh had a substantial influence on both of the epic poems ascribed to Homer. These influences are detailed by Martin Litchfield West in the East Face of Helicon and so forth. According to Zvi Abushk of Brandeis University, the poem combines the power and tragedy of the Iliad with the wanderings and marvels of the Odyssey. It is a work of adventure, but is no less a meditation on some fundamental issues of human existence, and etc. The Epic of Gilgamesh has inspired many works of literature, art and music. It was only after World War I that the Gilgamesh epic reached a modern audience, and only after World War II that it was featured in a variety of genres. And there's some see also's, notes, references. You see them there. Sources. Further reading. Jastrow Morris. I think we might have covered it and done a video on that guy. Okay, yeah, probably. Different versions, analysis, external links, and so forth. Yeah, it's got Gilgamesh and Huwawa, version A and B. An old Babylonian version of the Gilgamesh epic by Anonymous at Project Gutenberg, edited by Morris Jastrow, translated by Albert T. Clay, and so forth. It's all there. So, we're asking, did it really happen? Here's a Rabbi Tovia Singer TV website, and him and William Hall are talking about it. Okay, you can watch that in your own time. It's probably on YouTube. And he answers callers' pressing question: if Noah's flood was a historical event, why are there so many other ancient flood accounts? He's really good at explaining that sort of stuff. Sometimes he's really accurate, and sometimes he gets it all wrong, twisted, whatever. Okay, say something is correct when it's actually not, as we found. Right? We verify that he's actually incorrect. But people say no. Here is the creation, or Genesis. Breetah, or creation, is the real name of the book of Genesis. The word comes to us from the scribal, that's a sacred scribal old tongue, or language of the Jewish people. It's talking about the Judeans, not the 96%ers, alright, the European Jews. These are the Mesopotamian Yehuda, Judeans, tribe of Judah. This is the name of the first book of the scriptures in the ancient Hebrew Aramaic. So yeah, probably them and the Arameans. Okay, these are the Jews of Mesopotamia. Okay, the Middle East, not Europe, which is like the Ashkenazis, Hasidics, etc. Okay, Victor E. Alexander's translation of the Old Testament will utilise the cuneiform manuscripts discovered by archaeologists in Mesopotamia in the late 19th century AD. The Assyrian king Ashurbanipal, during his 7th century BC reign, out of Nineveh, sent out emissaries or agents to the southern region, special agents, right? The land of Shinar or Sumer and Chaldee, Babylonia, in search of the ancient epics such as the Epic of Creation, which included the story of Adam and Eve, or something similar to that, the Epic of Gilgamesh, which included the story of Noah and the flood, well, it was Upancham, or what's his other name? Estrahasis. The story of Noah and the flood. He had them translated in the modern Ashurit language. It's the language of the Ashurai. Yeah, it's the Ktav Ahuri, language of his day. It's like a cuneiform text, etc., etc. However, the originals were 3,000 years older, but also in cuneiform. Interestingly, the stories have been preserved essentially the same. Yeah, there's little variations, changes in detail stuff. Ironically, but essentially they're pretty much near the same. Ironically, by the time of Jesus Christ, the scriptures recorded during the Babylonian captivity, 5 centuries before, it's probably where they were finally released out of exile, and Ibram, his parents went to Mesopotamia, Uruk of Chaldea, i.e. Babylonia, and he was born there. So he wasn't a Jew, he was it might have been of Jewish origin, but according to the Breetah, he's born in Uruk of Chaldea, right, Babylonia. So yeah, they're probably Jews. These are the Jews that went there, right? These Judeans, etc. But they weren't Hebrews. Yeah. It wasn't until later on when these people crossed over a river, or crossed over these waters, which means that's the meaning of Hebrew, right? Okay. Where are we? Okay. Where are we? Ironically, by the time of Jesus Christ, or Esau Mashiach, the Messiah, the scriptures recorded during the Babylonian captivity 5 centuries before he turned up on the scene had become so narrowly interpreted that the scribes and Pharisees, the temple Pharisees, right, failed to recognize Jesus as the Messiah prophesied by all those millennial religious records. Today, both Judaism and the Catholic Church have realized that the contribution of the cuneiform tablets of the Assyrian to the understanding of the roots of the Bible. The archaeologists Sir Henry Austin Layard and Hormuzd Rassam, who was an Assyriologist, discovered the Ashurbanipal library because he was a tablet worm, i.e. bookworm. Okay, and he wanted to know all these stories, and he knew them really, really well, etc., etc. He had a massive library, the Nineveh library, which when they were invaded was destroyed, and these people dug, 1900s or something, found it, discovered it, whatever, uncovered it, and shipped all these supposedly 50,000 fragments of these tablets, etc., to the British Museum, where they are to this day. And this Victor Alexander, the translator, native-born Aramaic-speaking translator from Bet-Narim, Mesopotamia, Syria, went to the British Museum and the Louvre in Paris and looked at these cuneiform tablets, right, of Ashurbanipal, etc., and the artifacts, these winged bulls and all that sort of stuff that you get in museums. And to his surprise, he found Aramaic underneath, so he translated those using whatever method he used to do that, right? Part of his project mission. Okay, so today both Judaism and the Catholic Church have realised the contribution of the cuneiform tablets of the Ashurit, that's the Assyrians, the Ashurit people, right, Ashurites, to the understanding of the roots of the Bible. The archaeologists Sir Henry Austin Layard and Hormuzd Rassam discovered the Ashurbanipal library intact, okay, in Nineveh, and created the 50,000 tablets to the British Museum in London. So they basically found the structure, they unearthed it, right? But all the tablets obviously were in fragments. Yeah, they just break naturally, stuff like that, right? Yeah, someone might have dropped one, There's bits and pieces, fragments all over the floor, whatever. Right. They are the pride of the British Museum, together with the oldest ancient Aramaic Old Testament, which dates back to the 4th century AD. Okay. Ancient Aramaic Old Testament, which dates back to the 4th century AD. Apparently these scribes and monks were writing, or did a faithful copy of the Old Testament text in around 800 BCE in Uruk, Edessa, now modern Turkey. So maybe this is okay, because it's a different kind of Aramaic. Maybe this is okay. Yeah, probably. They may have copied it in around 800 BCE, or maybe it's the sacred old scribal tongue. No, actually, yeah, he did say on his website, these monks and scribes in Uruk, Edessa, now modern Turkey, copied these texts right faithfully. Yeah, probably oldest ancient Aramaic Old Testament, which dates back to the 4th century AD. Could that be the SupraYAH? Not really sure on that one. You'd have to ask the translator Victor Alexander exactly if it's the same or it's pointing to something at a later date. Okay. Alright, okay. So we're going to look at Genesis 1 to 4. Okay. Translated, this is the Breetah, translated into English, or Genesis, right, in English. The nearest English equivalent, while staying faithful to what these original texts actually say. Genesis 1, as the beginning, the Son of God. Okay, that's Esau Mashiach, Jesus the Messiah, creates the heavens and the earth because he was God, right? He was Allah, he is Allah, he is God. They're one. They're the same, right? One's a manifestation, and the other one's the embodiment of that manifestation. One that was known but not seen. This one was revealed, not known but revealed. Later on, is God incarnate in the flesh, the manifestation of God, and God is the embodiment of that manifestation, and so forth. Okay, so he created everything, compare it to 1 John verse 1, and so forth. So what we're looking at is that the sky and the earth were completed in all the evolution, these cycles, etc., and so forth. Okay, it's 6 eon, not day, immeasurable period, era, age, eon, day with a capital D, because it's a created calendar day, solar, lunar cycle, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's unfathomable. Who knows? Who was there to say, yeah, God did it in the 6 days? It's all assumption, right? But the word is Euma, up here somewhere. Yeah, Euma, eon, immeasurable period, age, or day with a capital D. That's what it is in the ancient Aramaic. Okay, very old Aramaic. Okay, so then he further on. So we're thinking, well, if like way up here somewhere, where is it? Separate water, blah 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 blah. Again, God said, let the water below the heaven be gathered in one world, right? And let dry land become visible, and it was so. Yeah, it's kind of a weird Eastern translation expression, bringing it, expressing it, right? In one world, and let dry land become visible. So he's basically trying to translate the closest English equivalent, right? Okay. So it's not all this, it says here the Hebrew word, it says that, the word, it says this word. These are all in the footnotes. Okay? He's trying to bring it across to people in English, okay, without the difficulties of that. No, look, the word here means, but that means, all that sort of stuff. as other people do when they talk about the Jewish scriptures and all that sort of stuff. It's just plain and simple in the English. Okay, it's giving you the meaning of what the text actually say. Okay, so he called the dry land earth, and the gathering of the waters the seas, and God saw that they are beautiful. So he's created this land. Okay, it's a planet first, and then it's the earth, because earth is dirt, isn't it? Egyptian story is it's a mound popped up from the waters, right, and all life began on there, all that sort of stuff. Okay, so what we're trying to get at is that further on, down here somewhere, everything's created, it's on this land and stuff, trees and all that sort of stuff, but what we're trying to do is determine, okay, all these creatures, everything was made, right, human beings, supposedly the Aboriginal indigenous man, Neanderthal man, according to the archaeological finds in Germany, in those caves by the German archaeologist Neander, right? So there's a pre-Adamic man before Adam, right? If you read it, it's like it says Adam, he placed them, it's two or more, all this sort of stuff. It's just all these men until he made a mate for him, right? This mother of all that would follow, Eve. Okay, so before them was the pre-Adamic Neanderthal beings, two genders, sexual sexes, right? Male and female. Okay, and here you would eat the veggies and everything, right? The fruit, never the animals, unless there was sacrifice demanded. There was a sacrifice demanded. You're allowed to eat them, right? Eat certain ones. Okay, so basically, there's some point here where he's made these beings, and he's made this human being, and placed them in a paradise, wherever that is. Some say on a map, it's located here, we found it. Eden's here somewhere near Africa or something, whatever, near the Euphrates or whatever they determine these videos, right? So basically, somewhere, whether it's in the heavenly realm or it was actually on the earth, he placed these beings somewhere in the east. Okay? And then they attempted, they fell, so they got prompted out of their garden further to the east of paradise, right? And they dwelt there, and then their son killed the brother. One brother killed the other brother, so he gets booted out, and he goes towards the east, the land of Nod. It always seems to be east, 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 right? The Neanderthal man was told, you've got authority here, charge over the animals, all this sort of stuff. Now go multiply, increase, whatever, and shoo, go, So he got sort of like prompted to the east. It's always east, east, east. So it's probably like they're at this point. You ever played the game Don't Starve? We start at one point. If you go to the left, it's all water. That's it. You have to go right. You're basically going to the east, aren't you? And you're carrying on from there. Right? Yeah, unless you can build a bridge and go across that great expanse of water, or parts or whatever, right? So yeah, in the Bible, Genesis, you're going east, east, east all the time, right? Okay, so Cain ends up wandering, going into this land of Nod, or wandering, which is to the east. Okay. And also we're looking at this, and we're seeing here, and the Lord God, this is in Genesis 2:8, in this ancient Breetah or Aramaic Genesis, that the Lord God had consecrated paradise in Eden from before, and there he set Adam, whom he had moulded from the earth, right? The other was made in his image, the Neanderthal man. And the Lord God supplied from the earth all that is pleasing to the sight and delicious to eat, in the tree of life in the midst of the paradise. The name of the first, and the river flowed out of Eden, because it had the plants or they had been watered or something like that in the story, right? And the river flowed out of Eden, or a river flowed out of Eden to irrigate the paradise. Okay, you've got to have water for plants, don't you? And from there it divided and became 4 tributaries or heads. The name of the first is Pishon, that is the one which goes around all the lands of Havilah, where there is gold. Down here. Yeah. See here. 210, literal Aramaic idiomatic figure of speech. That's the way they express themselves. And it's to stress a point, Dr. James D. Francisco, under his comments, under his video, The Aramaic Scriptures. Okay, he has 2 PhDs in Aramaic and Hebrew. When we asked him, he said, yeah, that's right. He said, if you don't understand the idioms, because they're all throughout the scriptures, even in Hebrew and in English, and you don't understand them, right? You haven't got a grasp of them, you don't know them, then you don't know the Bible as well as you claim, or you boast you do, right? Okay. These idioms, or these Aramaic expressions, the way they express themselves throughout the text, right, the original text. So that's why Victor and Alexander always put explanations for Western mindsets, and what the hell, they can't get around it. He's trying to explain to you exactly what those manuscripts, the idioms, are saying or hinting at, right? So you need to learn those. Sometimes it can cause confusion because he translates it like exactly how it, word for word in that original language, right? And yeah, it comes out kind of weird. Bit of a head twister sometimes. But it's all pretty easy. You just basically look at it. Okay, it's in English. Yeah, I can understand that, right? No problem. So, the river flowed out of Eden to irrigate the paradise, and from there it divided and became 4 tributaries, or heads. It's a figure of speech, right? Literal Aramaic idiomatic figure of speech. Heads. So it went into these branch-offs, right? The name of the first is Pishon, that is the one which goes around all the land of Havilah. Okay, why we did this again is because go further down past all this, where Cain, after many years, brought of the fruit of his land an offering to the Lord, okay, from the earth, right? Probably veggies and all that sort of stuff. Whereas the ground had been cursed because of Adam's sin. Okay, the son Abel became a herder, and Cain became a tiller of the soil. Okay, so he had cattle, goats, and sheep, and all that sort of stuff. And in time, God required a sacrifice to honour him, whatever, right? So Cain, the goody two shoes, comes along with the required sacrifice that God demanded, right? Best of his herd and his fattenings was lambs or rams or goats or whatever he had. And the Lord was pleased with Abel and his offering. And with Cain and his offering he was not pleased, and it really bothered Cain. It really got up his nose, and his face turned sour. Imagine, what's his name? Steve Martin as Abel. Cain. That kind of face. When he was the Bergerac with a big nose. Yeah. Okay, so his face turned sour. And the Lord said to Cain, why did it upset you, and why did your face turn sour? Behold, if you glorify me or honour me, do as you're told, you'll be accepted. And if you do not, your evil Lord, Rabishu, awaits you at the gate of sin, and you will turn to him, and he shall have authority over you. He'll be your master. You can't love one and hate the other. Yeah. So you got 2 masters. So down in the footnotes, down here, it says 4:1. Genesis 4:1, literal Aramaic Cain. It's Cain's, the name for Cain in the Aramaic, which means gain. The word is probably derived from the Aramaic. 4:2:1, literal Aramaic Havil, Abel. Ironically, it's probably where the word Abel came from. Okay, in the Aramaic, one worked the earth, one had the rams and all that sort of stuff, right? The fattenings. So he gets all jealous, and he goes and kills his brother, and he buries him somewhere, right? And his blood cries out to the Lord, and God comes to him and says, where's your brother? He says, how am I supposed to know? God, am I my brother's keeper? And he goes, his blood is crying out to me from the earth. What'd you do? You killed him, blah blah blah. And he realizes, my punishment is too much to bear. I'm out of your presence, God, but you're going to send me into this land of wandering where these other people there might find me, and if they do, they might kill me. He's talking about these pre-created Adams, right? These indigenous Neanderthals who had been told to go multiply, so they wandered off into the east, and probably were somewhere in the land of Nod, in that desert region. So that's what was giving them the shivers, because later on all men interbred. That's why you got hybridization, Neanderthal tendencies, all that sort of stuff, according to the archaeologists, the scientists, all that evidence, right? Okay, so don't want to lose track here. So yeah, they all came from one point in the east, and they branched out. Okay, we're going to look at those rivers again, because we think we might have left something out. Okay, here we go. Yep, the Pishon, the first is the Pishon, goes around all the land of Havilah, right? Because that's where, so remember, we'll go back down here again to those names. Their names, okay. 4 to 1 little Aramaic Havil, Abel, right? That's his name, Havil. So there's a place hinted in this Breetah or Genesis called Havilah, right? Where is it? Go back to these rivers again. Here you go. The name of the first is Pishon. This is the river, right? That is the one which goes around all the lands of Havilah, where there is gold. This is modern Kuwait. So we thought, well, okay, Havilah, Havil, Abel, right? So that's probably where he buried him. Tried to hide the body, didn't want to get caught. That's probably where he buried him, somewhere there, right? Possibly means something like Havil or Abel's place or something like that. His grave or something. I don't really know. Don't know the Aramaic, right? You have to ask the Galilean Aramaic translator, Victor Alexander, if that's even close to that, right? But it just looks familiar. Okay, and the gold of that land is good, where there is also lapis lazuli and beryl stones. Okay, the meaning of that is footnote there is down the bottom in the footnotes. Yeah, and the name of the second river is Gihon, or Gishon in your in your modern English Bible versions. That is the one that goes around all the land of Cush. It's not necessarily, might not even be Ethiopia as everybody thinks it is. Might be some other land, like maybe what do you call them? Not Ethiopians, Cushites, etc., etc. We'll look at it further on. Yes, it's not so much, well, not at all Ethiopia. Yeah, not too sure. I can't remember, but yeah, we found out that's not related to them, right? And the name of the third river is Tigris, which goes before Ashur. It's the land of the Ashurit. Okay, it's Tigris, which goes before Ashur, and the fourth river is the Euphrates. So this Ashur would probably be Assyria, Mesopotamia, etc., and the Euphrates. Okay, and they had to work the land and guard it for some reason. So that's where they're all coming from. So then later on, after Cain's banishing goes into the land, he finds himself a wife, has descendants. Adam took his wife again, he did the rumpy-pumpy with her, and she became pregnant and gave birth, and she called his name Seth, because God gave her another offspring in place of Abel, who was killed by Cain. And to Seth also was born a son, and he called his name Enosh. Thereafter they were called after the name of the Lord. Look at the footnotes. This was the beginning of the line of the children of the Lord. Okay, this is that holy line, and it continued on, and then supposedly somewhere along the way in that lineage, that's where the Christ came through from, right? God incarnated in the flesh. Okay, so salvation didn't come from the Jews; it came through the Jewish lineage. One particular person, right, who was the salvation, the Redeemer, etc. The sacrificial lamb, Jesus the Messiah, or Esau Mashiach. That's what it's talking about. Okay, so it's not salvation from the people, the Jewish people. Okay, it's from that lineage, that one promised Savior, Redeemer, etc. that will come through, emerge through that Judaic or Jewish lineage, right? Yeah. So where are we? 9. Where are we at this one? Okay, it's 1, 2, 3. Where are we on 5? Okay, and then you got all this genealogy of Adam. Okay, it states here Genesis 5. The chapter follows in detail the line of Seth. Yeah, because Enosh probably had a son called Seth, and he was the heir of that, right? Being head of that, being the head, older son, he's the head of that, the rest of the descendants of along the lineage of Seth, right? The line of Seth. This is the scripture of Adam's birth in the eon or the age era, unfathomable period, not a day, necessarily a day that we know it is, or day with a capital D. The one according to the Hebrew calendar, God's creation calendar, and all this sort of stuff. In the eon that God created Adam, in the likeness of Adam He created him, and he goes blah blah blah, right? And Adam lived 130 years, and he produced offspring in his own image, and he called his name Seth. Well, yeah, that's possible, 130 years, because they had all the, organic veggies, all that sort of stuff, fruit, whatever. But they were probably susceptible to disease. Get an infection in your foot, there's no cure for it, unless God does it himself. You die, right? What's the chances of you living to be 150, 160, right? Unless, there's some sort of divine intervention or, whatever, right? They're given a certain amount of years by God, etc., etc. He really protected them, looked after them, whatever. Yeah. So he blesses them and he calls their name Adam, their name, right? In an eon he created them. And blah blah blah, who's 130, produced offspring in his own image, and he called one of his descendants, his head descendant, or his oldest son, Seth. Okay, hang on. Seth. Right, and Adam's line after the birth of Seth lived 800 years, and to him were born many sons and daughters. So it's saying the lineage, the line of descendants, lived 800 years, and to him were born more sons and daughters, right? So Adam and Seth, Adam, okay, and because here it says, and Adam's entire line was 930 years altogether, his lineage, his descendancy, right, those coming from his loins, and then it ended. 5 little Aramaic idiom or expression that died out. Okay, so it's not saying like your Americanized Bible versions, English Bible versions, that Adam lived to be 930 years old. It's saying his lineage lived to be 930 years, then it died out. And Seth lived 105 years, and to him was born Enosh. Okay, that's the heir, or the head, the male, the firstborn male, the oldest male, right? And Seth's line lived after Enosh was born to him 807 years, and he brought 4 sons and daughters. Okay, Seth still carried on and brought 4 sons and daughters, right? It's not saying he's 807 years old. He's saying his line, his lineage, okay, his line of descendants. And Seth's entire line was 912 years, and then it ended. His lineage was over, right? And Enosh's began, and it carries on like that, right? And it gets to Enoch, who lived 65 years, and to him was born Methuselah, okay, which means down here 521 literal Aramaic name Matushalach in the Aramaic, the ancient Aramaic. And Enoch glorified God after the birth of Methuselah, after his son, right? And his offspring, his descendants, for 300 years did likewise. They glorified God, right? So they joined this gang, the children of God, right? With this line, holy line, the children of God. And Enoch glorified God after the birth of Methuselah and his offspring for 300 years. His offspring did the same thing for 300 years, and he brought 4 sons and daughters. And Enoch's entire line or lineage or descendants, line of descendants, was 365 years. And Enoch praised God for his duty, okay, for which God had consecrated him. He blessed him, he'd made him, right there. He'd given that blessing to him for that, right? Enoch praised God for his duty, because that's the thing he did, right? he felt it was his duty, so he did that as a child of God, for which God had consecrated him, blessed him, etc., etc. Or possibly appointed him. And Methuselah lived 187 years, and to him was born Lamech. So then that's the end of Enoch. It doesn't say, well, because of that God took him. He didn't die, he went up on a fiery chariot into outer space and all that sort of stuff, right? It doesn't say that there. Even though it might have some hint of it in 1 Peter 2 or something like that. Okay, supposedly it mentions it there. Okay, so the line lives, so long, and then the oldest son takes over. And Lamech's line lived after Noah was born to him 595 years, and he brought forth sons and daughters. So Lamech was still virile, still had it in him, getting it on, having all these kids, more sons and daughters. And then his entire line was 777 years, and then it ended 777, right? Oh, lucky guy. And Noah's line was 500 years, and to him were born Shem, Cam, and Japheth. These are his 3 sons. It doesn't say what colour they were, if they're like black, brown, green, or whatever. Okay, it doesn't say that. And then you got Genesis 6, and look at this footnote down the bottom here. It says Genesis 6, which means Urata, which is the Hebrew version of the Epic of Gilgamesh. So we tried to look for that online, but we got the Epic of Gilgamesh in the Hebrew Bible. Okay, we're looking for that in particular. It states here, and while human beings began to multiply on the face of the earth, daughters were born to them. So these people are in a certain place, are they not? Okay, possibly all stemming from Cain, maybe. Okay, what's this for? It's 4. Okay, you have to go right back here. Okay, starting from Adam. Abel's dead. Cain goes on. He has his line, his descendants, his lineage. Okay, then Adam and Eve started over again, have Enosh. Then it's his lineage. Okay, down to Noah. His line was 500 years old, his lineage, a line of descendants, and to him were born Shem, Cam, and Japheth, his 3 sons, right? And here it states in Genesis 6, and while human beings began to multiply on the face of the earth, daughters were born to them. It's saying they're multiplying, it's not saying, well, they went this way, they went that way, and they ended over here and ended over there, and went down to Australia and New Zealand, and started up life down there. It's not saying that. Okay. And the sons of God saw that the daughters of men, these are the children of God, that line of children of God, this holy line, saw that the daughters of men, these are the unholy line, the godless line, right? Human beings were beautiful, their daughters were beautiful, and so they picked for themselves women whomever they pleased. So this is what it means by they left their rightful places. Okay, it's not talking about fallen angels with genitals, genitalia, all that sort of stuff. It's all there. The sons of God, or the children of God. Okay, you can go back to where is it? Number 5, is it? 5, 8, we're already there, right? So it must be 4, 8. Okay. Seth's line, Seth's lineage, of line of descendants. Okay. Seth had a son. Okay, and the line went on. Lineage, line of descendants or lineage, right? Who thereafter, okay, his descendants, his children, sons and daughters, were called after the name of the Lord. 426, the beginning of the line of the children of the Lord. Okay. There they are there. They left their rightful place, right, in the presence of God, etc., etc. And they chased after these daughters of human beings because they saw they were beautiful, they were hot, so they picked for themselves whoever they wanted, right? Whomever they wanted, whomever they pleased. Yeah. And here's a footnote indication here. So you're not getting idea, you're not going to have the idea we're being stand-up comedians. 6413, literal Aramaic idiom or expression: strange creatures, hybrid forms, monstrously large Neanderthals. Okay. here, look. 6-2, literal Aramaic expression, daughters of the human being. Right? Of the human beings. Yeah? The daughters of men. Daughters of the human being. Yeah? And 6-4, and okay, and the Lord said, or God said, my spirit does not reside in a human being forever, to the ends of the universe. Right, down here. It's not going to be with them to the ends of the universe. Where are we? Yeah, my spirit does not reside in a human being forever, because he is flesh. He's like, lusty, desiring, all that sort of stuff. Ignoring God. He's left his rightful place. And his lifespan, how long they'll live, became 120 years. Or the age, the eon, the era, will be 120 years. That's what he's talking about. Okay, let's see if we're in the right place, right? Genesis 3. Yeah, Genesis, it should be Genesis 3:3, footnote. Where are we? 4, 1-3. 6-4, Genesis 6-4, 1, 2, no, so we're in the wrong one again. I'm trying to put you wrong. It should be 6-3. 6:3, and the Lord said, my spirit does not reside in a human being forever, because he is flesh, and his lifespan, okay, it's 6:2, should be 6:2. Where is it? 6:2. No, we still lost it here. Yeah, here it is. 6:32. Age, eon, age or eon. Yeah, that's how long he had, because God regretted making him. Yeah. Because they interbred with the pre-Adamic beings who had breath of life. They were living souls, they were animate, right? But they didn't have that spirit of God, right? Whereas the Adams, the humanoids, did. That's how they could communicate with God, be in the presence of God, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, that's what it means, right? So they interbred with the giants, because it says, and they were, talking about two or more, they were giants, indicating that these particular beings were giants in the earth. These are the offspring. In those ages and even later, because the sons of God, the children of God, entered upon the daughters of men. So it was a holy line messing with a whole unholy line, right? And there was born to them aliens who were giants of universal fame. It's not talking about E.T. or Alf, Anu Nanu, all that sort of stuff. Mork from Ork, something completely different. But they were giants, and they were known. They were famous, right? It's global, right? Worldly fame, right? Yeah. So go back down 6 here, because they interbred, as the archaeologists, scientists, etc., historians, whatever, say about the Neanderthal Man, that the human beings or humanoids, Homo erectus, whatever, they interbred with these pre-Adamic, or these Neanderthals, who are bigger, stronger, but slower, bulky, too bulky, so they'd run slow. Right, they chase the animals across the planet just to get them, whereas the humanoid was a bit more brainy, and he set traps and all that sort of stuff. He had better weapons, and he outsmarted the Neanderthals, and he interbred with them, and finally interbred them out of existence. Right, and so that's why it's said that we are hybrids of the Neanderthals, right? Human hybrids. Okay. So the offspring, because they're closely related, right? They're both human. They're both beings. Yeah, human beings, or a form of beings. Then they're probably their DNA, their genetics, etc., being human, right? Being beings, right? Would have been relatively close, or it's to do with the fact that a holy line mixed with a unholy line. But yeah, in that sense. But really, it's stressing that they interbred with these Neanderthals. Yeah, and from them came strange creatures, hybrid forms, monstrously large Neanderthals. And then he does the theory of the Aborigine or the Neanderthals. Okay, he's not talking about the Australian Aborigines. He's meaning these that stuck to their indigenous habitats, their animal instincts, all that sort of stuff, right? Okay, so where are we? Okay, and the Lord said, my spirit does not reside in the human being forever. Was that the Holy Spirit? Because he is flesh. Yeah, that just talking about the children of God. His lifespan became 120 years. That's so long before God wiped him out, because he had that regret, right? And they were giants in the earth in those ages, and even later, because the sons of God entered upon the daughters of men, married whoever they wanted, right? And to them was born aliens or strangers who were giants, Neanderthals of universal fame. Yeah, they're monstrously large, and that's where you get your giant myths from, right? Throughout the centuries, coming from there apparently. Yeah, and the Lord saw that means evil spread on the earth. They just didn't give stuff about God anymore. They turned their back on him, and every dissipation of their hearts' excuses became worse with every age. So the Lord sighed over his creation of Adam on the earth, and there were reservations in his heart. He had regrets, right? And the Lord said, I will wipe out the men, with human beings. I have created from the face of the earth, from the human beings to the four-legged animals, from the crawlers to the birds of the sky, because I regretted having created them. Okay. He sighed over, right? 672, literal Aramaic expression. He sighed over it, right? He was sad by that, by the condition that they'd gone into, right? But Noah found mercy in the eyes of the Lord. That's one guy, right? And this is the birth of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, and his seed, his descendants, his lineage, right? Okay, 6-9, literal Aramaic idiomatic figure of speech, grains. How are we? 9, yeah. Okay, he was all pure, righteous, right? The seed of his loins, probably, down here, grains, was wholesome, and Noah worshipped God. He was chaste or whatever, right? And to Noah were born 3 sons, Shem, Cam, and Japheth. So yeah, he was the only one on earth that was righteous. All the rest were evildoers. All those of that holy line of Seth or Enoch, they all turned their backs on God and became mad, right? And to Noah were born 3 sons, Shem, Cam, and Japheth. So he must have found a decent wife before they all went mad. Must have been one that didn't leave the rightful place. And the earth went mad before God, and the earth became full of abomination. Imagine it. You can do anything you want, and people were doing anything. Yeah, unimaginable, all the sickest acts you can ever imagine. Because everything goes, baby, in that sense, with those people. And God saw the earth's madness as all flesh had lost its direction toward him on earth. They turned their back on him, right? All of them, except Noah and his wife. And the Lord said, all flesh has gone mad before me, because of the earth has been filled by abomination. So the old old serpent was probably rubbing his hands going, gotcha, God. But unfortunately, there's 2 people that were righteous, right? Noah and his wife, obviously. And the Lord said, all flesh has gone mad before me, because the earth has been filled by abomination before them. Behold, or look, I will abandon them to their madness together with the earth. Yes, so be it, right? Okay, they want to play that game, well, he's going to leave them to their own devices. Okay, all over the earth. And the Lord said, and he instructs Noah to make an ark of wood from the root with curved chambers, providing strength. Okay, and here's all the details here. Okay, Irving Finkel translates from the Babylonian Cuneiform Tablets, and I don't know if he actually details in the video the actual measurements. He's a British curator or something like that, and British Museum curator, and he took those plans of the Babylonian cuneiform text and recreated that coracle or the ark Okay, and it wasn't a banana shape or anything like that, with pretty giraffes hanging up, all that sort of stuff, budgies. It was actually round, known as a coracle, right? Used throughout history. I think you see something about Wales. The Welsh still use those forms of boat transport. Yeah, he did it according to those plans, and then he sailed it down this river with his crew that helped him to build it, reconstruct it from those Babylonian tablet, cuneiform tablet plans. Yeah. So obviously there's a variation there. And behold, this is God. He says, look, be aware, I shall bring a deluge of water, great flood of water, over the face of the earth to undo every form of living flesh under the sky, and so that everyone on earth is drowned. Okay, so if they're all in one place, they will easily be drowned, right? Okay. There might be a little bit scattered here and there, but had the land, including the plates and all that, all that separated by volcanic action or whatever, they all separated so they form countries, like we see on a world map. Probably not. It's probably just one big landmass, right? With the odd river here and there, like the Gihon and all that. Okay. So all the people were probably around that area, partying it up, smoking it up, whatever, Okay, because the Timetables of History by Bernard Green, page 3, G, Daily Life, states there was floods in the Mesopotamian region, right? And remember, Victor Ian Alexander saying on his website that it was up that, or it was through email, I can't remember, that these floods happened in the Mesopotamian region only. So the other one must be that global flood. If it's a global flood, it must be that end of the ice age, melting the polar caps and all that sort of stuff, and it flooded the whole world, etc., etc. That's universal, right? Global. Okay, so which one has the actual established facts, the evidence that proved itself evidence, and the stories are infallible, or the facts and findings are infallible and irrefutable, right? Irrefutable. This story in Breetah or Genesis, or the actual established facts, evidence, proven evidence, etc., etc. Irrefutable, infallible. Findings by top archaeologists, scientists, etc. Okay, so then they're all going mad, doing all their thing, right? All their dirty thing. So there's only Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and maybe, out of that, those children of God, maybe these other 3 women as well. So there's 8 of them, right? All righteous and stuff. And then God remembered them in the ark and all that sort of stuff. So they get out of the ark after 40 days. See, the details are different, very different from the Sumerian Akkadian mythos of the Great Deluge, etc. Very different. See here it says 40 days on the water or something like that. Whereas, if I can remember rightly, the Great Deluge might say 6, and then the raven or sent out, or a scavenger or something like that. Completely different to this, where it was some bird like a raven and then a dove, all this sort of stuff. Yeah, there's slight differences, right? Okay. And the waters cover the earth completely for 150 days. Okay. And he recalled Noah and all the creatures, all the animals, blah blah blah. And the ark settled down in the 7th month by the 17th of the month on the mountain of the apes, which is a 4-literal Aramaic name, Kadu or Ararat. Yeah. What else went down? Okay, there's what's he sent one of his pigeons. The pigeon could not find a place, and it came back to him. And went in the ark with him. And 7 days later, he went back and sent the pigeon from the ark, the same one. And the pigeon came to him in the evening, and there was an olive leaf held in his beak. And then Noah knew that the waters had diminished from the surface of the earth. Okay, it's not saying scavenger or raven or anything like that, as it says in the Chaldean Genesis account, if we recall rightly. Okay. And then here's some more information here. Okay, what are we up to? 9:12. Okay, so God blesses Noah and his children, right? And get out of the ark, and he tells them multiply and increase and fill the earth, replenish it, like Jordan Maxwell says. It means do it over again, right? Get together, multiply and increase, right? So Noah was him and his wife, and then his 3 sons and their wives, apparently. Yeah. And then he makes his sign, his promise of this covenant, and the rainbow, all that sort of stuff. Every time we see it, his covenant, his promise with the earth, his stand with the earth, that he won't flood it by water ever again. And Noah had sons that left the ark, and they were Shem, Cam, and Japheth. Again, it doesn't say one is red, one is black, one is yellow, all that sort of stuff. Okay, and all this sort of stuff. And here's the genealogy, the line of the children of Noah, Shem, Cam, and Japheth, to whom was born children after the flood. The children of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, Madai, and It goes all the way right through there, right? Lists them all there. And then down the bottom here, from Genesis 10:2. Genesis 10:1 to 32. It's got the footnotes here. 10:1, Aramaic name. Where are we? Children of Japheth. Okay, yeah, the children of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tiras, which are the Germans. Okay, and all the children of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Repath, and Togarmah. The Anglo-Saxons maybe? The English, probably. Where are we? And the children of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Repath, and Togarmah. And the children of Javan were Elisha, Tarshish, and Kittim, and Rodanim. Aramaic name, Greeks. Okay, so there's Anglos, Medes, Germans, Anglos, Medes, Greeks. The last 3 names do not resemble any names that the translator was familiar with at that time. It would take some more research to find out the correct transliteration of the modern derivatives. Okay, then 10:6, little Aramaic name, the Egyptians. 10:6, and the children of Cam were Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Could be the Ethiopians, but what we've read is actually not. Okay. And the children of Cush were Sheba, Havilah, this is the people from Kuwait, probably Arabs, Sabta, Ramah, and Sabteca, and the sons of Ramah were Sheba and Deran. And to Cush was born Nimrod, which is the translator Victor N. Alexander can trace his lineage back to Nimrod. That's why he's got that middle name, his grandfather's name or somebody like that, and so on. And he became a giant of the earth, and so forth. Okay, he was the head of the kingdom, which included Babylon, Uruk, Akkad, and Kala in the land of Sumer. So you got the Sumerians, the Akkadians, and the Babylonians who came after that. Yeah. And from those lands there emerged the Ashurit. This is the Ashurit people, the Assyrians, who built Nineveh in the towns of Rehoboth and Calah, and reasoned the great city between Nineveh and Calah. And to Mizraim was born Ludum, probably the Egyptians, possibly. Where's this? Where are we? Oh my gosh. Okay, where am I? Okay, got me burned there too far. Yeah, Mizraim, we have a look at that, 6. 10:6, yeah, Egyptians. Little Aramaic name, Egyptians. 10:10. Nimrod was the head of his kingdom, which included Babylon, Uruk, Akkad, and Calah in the land of Sumer. desert regions of Sumer, which is basically Assyrian area, right? But the Assyrians went around to invade and attack that area, right? Okay, so possibly where the name Iraq came from, although Iraqis are predominantly now Arabs or Muslims, the name may have survived in the folklore of the minorities, the descendants that still inhabit the land of ancient Mesopotamia. And to Shem, Japheth's great brother, there was also born children. He became the father of all the children of passage. This is the Hebrews. Okay, the children of Shem were the Elamites, the Ashurit, the Shaddai, the Lotians, and the Arameans, where the Aramaic language came from, the descendants of Aram. Okay. And to the children of Aram were Uz, Hul, Getha, and Mash. And to Arpachshad was born Shelah, and to Shelah was born Eber. Here's your line of the Hebrews. Okay. That's where it starts, right? With Eber or Heber in your Americanized Bible versions, English versions. The Hebrews. Why? Because 1024 here, footnote, literal Aramaic name Hebrew comes from this name Ar-wer, to cross over. I'm pretty sure that should be cross over, or one who crosses over, someone who crosses over, implying passage. Okay, the people of this passage, they went across this river. Yeah, it crosses over this water, right? Or crosses over land, implying passage. So it's probably these of the Exodus. Okay. But yeah, so it mentions the Hebrews there through Eber, mentions the Egyptians and the Assyrians, the Ashurit. Okay. And the whole earth, Genesis 11:1, and the whole earth, okay, the dirt, the planet, okay, it was a planet, and then when it had ground, land, it became earth, right? Because that's dirt, isn't it? Right. Ground was one language, and everyone spoke the same dialect. That's everyone on this earth, in that particular area, probably in the east, spoke one language, the same dialect. 11:1. Little Aramaic idiomatic construction, and all the earth was one tongue and spoke one. In other words, they spoke one language. And it was that they came from the east. Everyone seems to be coming from the east, right? Well, they took from the east. That's an idiomatic, literal Aramaic idiomatic figure of speech. Took from the east. Okay. It's just basically they came from the east, right? No complications there. They found an empty spot in the land of Sumer or Shinar, desert region, and they settled there. And they said, one to each other, a man to his friend, again, let us cast bricks and burn them in the fire. And bricks became their stone, and they used bitumen for mortar, because once they are burnt, they become really hard, right? Solid. Probably better than the bricks you got today. And they said, let us again build ourselves a city and a ziggurat. That it's a Persian thing, right? It's like a temple of worship. Okay, in the Americanized Bible version, a tower, the Tower of Babel, with its head in the sky, and let us call ourselves by a name. Footnote indication there, by a nation, so we do not end up scattered all over the earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the ziggurat, so they built a city and a ziggurat that humanity had built. And the Lord said, behold, or look, the people are one people, they're united, okay, not divided. There's no separatism, and there is one language for all of them. And this is what they thought of doing. From now on, they will not be at a loss to do whatever they imagine. Okay? So they use the imagination. They can do near anything, right? Anything they put their mind to. Okay, so the Lord suggests to two or more, let us go down there and divide the languages. So it must be talking about be God, possibly some messengers of God, angels of God, or whatever, right? Possibly God, the Creator, i.e., the manifestation of God, the Milter, right? I.e., Jesus, the Son of God. It's probably, it says Lord, so it's probably the Spirit of Christ or whatever, who is God, come down, right? Saying, let us go down there and divide the languages so that the men will not listen to their companion's tongue, right? Footnote. They won't be able to understand each other. Give them all these different languages. And the Lord scattered them from there over the face of all the earth. It's like, they just went everywhere, right? Not necessarily went to New Zealand or Australia. That's over time, right? Centuries later, whatever. And they left off building the city, so they just basically abandoned it. So maybe it's still there somewhere, under all that dirt, grass. Someone may find it one day, in that stage where they left it. That is why its name. Okay, the Lord scattered them from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city, so it was incomplete. That is why its name is called Babylon, because it was there that the Lord made the language of all the earth sound like babbling, and from there the Lord spread them all over the earth. The Roman Catholic Church is also referred to as Babel, because it's the false church, the of Babylon, in the Book of Revelations. Okay, and then it goes on about Shem. And here's his son. Shem's line after birth was 500 years. Okay, and so forth. So we're talking about the lineage, right? And it leads up to Abraham. And Terah, and the Uruk of Chaldee, after the Babylonian exile, he lived there, right? He lived 75 years, and to him were born Abraham, or Abram, Nahor, and Haran, or Abraham. These are the descendants of Terah. To Terah was born Abram, Nahor, and Haran, and to Haran was born Lot. So this Lot becomes Abraham's nephew, right? Okay. And Haran lived during the lifetime of Terah, his father, in the land where he was born, Ur of the Chaldees. So Abraham was a product of these Jews from the Babylonian exile, these Judeans, and they lived in Ur of. His parents after that resided in Ur of Chaldee, or Babylonia, as was known, and they gave birth to 3 sons, and one of them was Abraham, or Abraham, right? So he was a Chaldean, right? Jew Chaldean. Abraham and Nahor consecrated for themselves women. In the name of Abraham's woman was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's woman was Milcah. We worked out that that's Lot was his brother's son, right? So that makes him his nephew. Abraham and Nahor consecrated for themselves women. They chose themselves, took upon themselves, or blessed themselves with woman, right? Whatever woman their eye attracted them to, right? And the name of Abraham's woman was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's woman was Milcah. So that's his brother's wife, the daughter of Haran, who was the father of Milcah and Iscah. There's no problem there. And it happened that Sarai was barren; she had no children; she couldn't have kids, right? But we worked it out that when he went to Egypt, he says, I tell them that I'm your brother, you're my sister. Don't tell them we're husband and wife, because you're so attractive they'll want to kill me and take you. But of course he did it twice, and he got rich off it. He was blessed and all that sort of stuff. But we worked it out that one of them dies, right? One of these, where is he? Terah died in Haran, where they were, right? So he fetched his son Abraham, Haran's son, and his grandson Lot, and Sarah his daughter-in-law, and the wife of Abraham, or Abraham his son, right? Abraham's son and his grandson Lot. Okay. Okay, so Abraham Haran, his 2 sons, and his grandson Lot, and SupraYAH his daughter-in-law, and the wife of Abraham's son, he went out with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go to the land of Canaan, and they came as far as Haran, settled there. And the age of Terah was 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. Oh my gosh. And you had this idea that, I did this other video on it, right? That he actually, when we went into Egypt, you see, so I tell him, you're repeating yourselves, tell them that, you know, you're my sister, I'm your brother, so they won't kill me and take you by force, right? Happened twice. God forewarned them. Don't go there, bro. And Abraham left Egypt and the other location with lots of cattle, gold, whatever. He became wealthy from it. But we had this impression that she was actually his sister or a half sister. Yeah. Down here says, we will say that you are my sister, then they will be nice to me because of you, and they will let me live because of you. And as Abraham entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that his wife was very beautiful, and the courtiers of Pharaoh, it's like the courtesans or priests or whatever of the king, Pharaoh. The Pharaoh saw her and praised her before Pharaoh, and Abraham's wife was fetched to the house of Pharaoh. And something happens, and he says, Abraham, you know, what is this that you did to me? Why did you not reveal to me that this was your wife? And why did you say this is my sister, and offer her to me for a wife? Behold, oh look now fetch your wife and leave. And the Pharaoh commanded his men to send him away and his wife away, together with everything he has. But we're pretty sure that somewhere along the way he said, well, you actually are my sister, right? Like a half sister or something like that. We will try figure out where we saw that. Where are we? 9:12. Okay, and he headed south out of Egypt. He went south. Okay, and somewhere along the way he goes back to another place, and yes, before that, way before that. Yeah, he did it again somewhere along here. Might be chapter 17 or something like that. Have a look. Let me see. Genesis chapter 17. Have a look. Can't see any NWT because it's so freaking small. The printing. What are we looking for? Genesis 17. Okay. Genesis 17. Oh, there you go. Magnifying glass. 17. Go back. Probably chapter 14. Genesis chapter 14. No, probably before that. Pretty sure there's two accounts of it. One we went into Egypt and said to Sarah, tell them I'm your brother. Yeah. What's this? Oh my gosh. Genesis 12:10. Now there was a famine in the land, and Abraham went down to Egypt to live there for a while because the famine was severe, and there was land plenty. As he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will kill me, but will let you live. Say you are my sister, so that I will be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared because of you. And he gets all these riches, because the Egyptians warned by God not to go there. And he leaves Egypt. I'm pretty sure he went there again, or prior to that. Pretty sure there's two accounts of that. Can't seem to find it. We did a video on it before. Sure, that's what we found. Was actually his half sister. We have to go right back and have a look. It says Cush was the father of Nimrod. 8. Ancestor or predecessor or founder. Yeah. Can't seem to find it. Yeah. Okay. Milcah, she was the daughter of Haran. Okay. Yeah, we have to think about that one again. We may have made a mistake, but we're pretty sure she was his half sister. It's like something to do with the brothers. Terah became the father of Abraham, Nahor, and Haran became the father of Lot. While his father Terah was still alive, Haran died in Ur of the Chaldees in the land of his birth. Abraham and Nahor both married. The name of Abraham's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. She was the daughter of Haran, father of both Milcah and Iscah. Now Sarai was barren; she had no children. Yeah, might have taken it out of context, but we're pretty sure we saw it hint at that she was his half sister. He says, "Yeah, for you indeed are my half sister." Oh my gosh. Okay, we're going to end it there. We'll probably find it and include it in a footnote underneath this video, something like that. Okay, because we don't dwell on it for too long. So if you enjoyed this video, let us know by giving us a like, subscribing to our channel, giving us a like, and adding your comments below, and then go share it with all your family, friends and loved ones. and tell them about us, the ministry of the real truth.